Piers Morgan's life stories. Chris Eubank teased in promo. Sign up for free now for the biggest moments from morning TV. Subscribe and valid email. When you subscribe, we will use the information you provide to send you these. Sometimes they'll include recommendations for other related newsletters or services. Our privacy notice explains more about how we use your data and your rights. You can unsubscribe at any. The former boxing champion, who is tonight the subject of ITV's Piers Morgan's life stories, questioned whether the capital should become an independent city or state, as he argued London had a better chance of going it alone. Outspoken Eubank, who became one of the 90s most recognizable stars due to his exploits inside and outside the ring, demanded there be no compromise on not keeping London as a vantage point in its historical right of. He added, ahead of the Brexit referendum, which saw most capital boroughs vote Remain, that an independent London could have a GDP at the same level as Sweden or Switzerland, and may even have a national income twice as large as Singapore, a destination described as the easiest place. Using data from the Centre for Cities Group, Eubank detailed how the capital was already streaks ahead of other cities across the UK, particularly as it had created 10 times more private sector jobs than anywhere else. Eubank also questioned whether there may be a rise in pro-London independence. He claimed former London Mayor Boris Johnson had suggested around 1 in 5 Londoners would have voted for London to become separate and independent from the rest of the country, adding, how many would that number have increased to now? His comments were made days before the UK hit the polls to decide whether it should stay as a member of the EU. A host of British multinationals waded into the debate, with the banking sector warning a vote to leave would spark chaos within the financial. The British Banking Association said in 2016 that businesses don't like that kind of uncertainty, something Goldman Sachs argued could impact the city's status as a European and global market leader in finance. But Eubank argued that London could follow the Singapore blueprint, meaning it would allow the capital and the rest of the country to run their economies to the advantage of. He said, Scotland may not have justified itself as an independent state, but London could most certainly do this on no other grounds than present-day need. Trending. After all, there are more languages spoken in London than anywhere else in the world, claiming 300 plus. London contributes more in taxes than it receives in public funding. The average London worker contributes 70% more to the nation's national income than the rest. The idea of London going independent, sometimes referred to as Londependence, has been touted for decades, but experts have described such a move as wholly unrealistic. Brian Gloom, writing for the Financial Times in 2013, described the concept of secession as a fantasy, as it was ludicrous to think of any nation gladly waving goodbye to its Dr. James Kurlindsey, a senior research fellow at the London School of Economics who specializes in secession movements, also outlined how difficult it would be for the capital to secure a referendum. He argued it seems difficult to see how any government would ever agree to such a vote, while claiming that should London break away without permission it would be unable to join. If London were to become independent, according to the Evening Standard's Simon Jenkins, boundaries would have to be drawn up, which would likely follow a similar route to that of the M25 around. Mr. Jenkins suggested that boundaries would be policed by digital mapping, ruling out the need for any harm. And some experts have suggested the consequences could be beneficial, with the BBC's former economics editor Sally Sanders saying the remainder of the UK would place more emphasis on its manufacturing industries as opposed to the financial sector. The Week reported in 2014 that Ms. Sanders claimed while London was subsidising the rest of the country, its very success was also holding it back. The Guardian's Larry Elliott added, as an independent city-state, London would have a higher exchange rate and higher borrowing costs. The rest of the country would, by contrast, get a competitive boost. Chris Eubank slams Channel 4 reporter over unfair questions. Eubank's question led the boxer to declare, the capital is a tradition, a status quo, the center of the planet, adding that it can never be anything other than the great. Eubank concluded, I'm sure politicians would say this about the rest of the UK, and the effect on all communities, so I will not play politics where this is concerned. I will always plead that I am just a boxer and let the politicians do their politics. After all, it's said this will always be damn both ways, so no sense in not keeping London as a vantage point in its historical right of it. There should be no compromise where this is concerned. Extricate London. Eubank's popularity soared as his world titles contests alongside fellow Britons Nigel Benn and Michael Watson defined his career, while his life away from the ring saw the 54-year-old stun the public, as he spoke in his iconic lispy, upper-class tone, and dressed in high-end attire, complete with monocle and cane. The star, who was voted the world's second most eccentric personality after Bjork, also endured his share of difficulties, making controversial comments and going bankrupt in